So ladies, gentlemen, jokers out there, today I wanted to talk about a few reasons as to why I'm excited and looking forward to Joker 2 Folie à Deux. We're going to get into some aspects of the movie that I'm looking forward to and where perhaps other people aren't, which is somewhat of another reason as to why I wanted to get into this, because I feel like, I don't know if I'm crazy, no pun intended there, it's kind of against the grain at the minute, maybe a little bit of a hot take to say that you're quite excited for this movie, but also just a few things that I want to see in Joker 2 in the way they approach it compared to that of the first film. And I'm going to be saying all of this, obviously, not even having seen a trailer just yet. Speaking of which, kind of brings me to my first point here, and this could be coming fairly soon, to be fair. And you may be like, eh? Wait, we're getting a Joker 2 trailer soon? I mean, I can't prove that for a fact whatsoever, but, you know, after all, in October, it was said that Joker 2 was entering the final stages of production, which means they're more than, and I've said this quite a few times, they're more than ready to show off something, considering when the movie finished filming, how long they've been in post-production now, and the movie still doesn't even come out until October this year. So yes, I very much so do expect at least the first teaser, the first promo, if you will, fairly soon. And just yesterday, from making this video, we've had a song registered for Joker 2 titled Harley and Joker Waltz. Now, this is very interesting, and it's obviously a song slash track for the movie revealed on Gaga's BMI account here. This is pretty damn official, and we know, and with what we're going to get into in this video, is that it has musical aspects and is even being labeled a musical by some people out there. And I phrase it like that because whenever I say musical, people are like, it's not a straight up musical, and then some people say it is a musical. So we're going to, again, dive into that a little bit. But back to the trailer here and back to the song, the Harley and Joker Waltz. Of course, this could quite simply mean, okay, they've registered one of the songs for the sequel movie, but it could also be foreshadowing that we could be getting our first official teaser soon with this Harley and Joker Waltz song, if you will, that's been registered, could be the very song that's featured in the first promo, of which, if you take a look at the previous trailers for Joker, the first movie, one thing I really liked about it, and speaking of musicals here, they were kind of very musical oriented in the sense of the song choices used in those trailers. Now, more on that in a second, but I do think, as many are speculating, that the first teaser, the first clip, the first promo could very well come out on Valentine's Day, which is kind of just a fitting thing for Joker and Harley Quinn and the shared madness with Folie à Deux. And the first marketing for this movie, in my opinion, will hopefully wake up a lot of people who have been sleeping on what the concept is, at least from what we've heard so far, for Joker 2. And as for my personal desires for the first teaser, the first promo, I do really think, going back to what I said a second ago, it should mirror what the trailers for the first movie had. They were absolutely fantastic, and as I said a second ago as well, they were quite musical, if you will. We had songs like Jimmy Durante's Smile, the whole Smile, If Your Heart Is Aching, Smile, and I loved that being incorporated into the trailers. Of course, we also had the popularized by Sinatra, Send In the Clowns, which a lot of people know now, which is a song actually from an early 70s musical, and I swear, Joker, the first movie, had so many musical elements, it's actually crazy, to the point of where I feel like some people were just ignoring that, in how it isn't as wild of a swing for this sequel to have gone for the musical approach as what some people were thinking. So bottom line here, I would love for those trailers or promos for Joker Folie à Deux to mostly feature just an overlay of song. Perhaps maybe an addition, just like the first trailers for the first movie, with a bit of narration there from Arthur Fleck, in where in that first movie he would talk about how his mother always told him to smile and put on a happy face. So perhaps with Joker 2, Folie à Deux, put on another fantastic song there, perhaps one from that of a musical. For all we know, it could be the Cheek to Cheek song that we had first teased to us in this promo uploaded by Lady Gaga and Todd Phillips quite a long time ago now, announcing the movie, but maybe with some words from Arthur in Arkham Asylum, introducing himself to Harleen, saying something like, "Hello, I'm Arthur." Maybe they're in a joint therapy session or something like that, and then the trailer will end off with that, and maybe the camera cuts to Harleen Quinzel just smiling. I don't know. I can imagine that so visually in my head, but let me know if you have any suggestions or ideas of your own down in the comments with regards to the first trailer, and also when you think that first trailer will drop. All right, so for number 2 with Folie, something I want to see, something I am excited for because I think they're going to have to do this with what we're working with here, and that is the unreliable narration to not only match the first film, but to top it, like absolutely top it, as we have 2 characters now which share in the madness. Now, as we know, Folie à Deux roughly translates to this shared madness, if you will, and we know that this movie will introduce Harleen Quinzel. Now, I want nothing more for this movie to really embrace what that first film had going for it, which was the whole, was this part of it real or was this part not so real? They demonstrated that through, for example, Arthur Fleck imagining that he was actually dating Sophie Dumond, but by the time, she walked in her apartment towards the end of the movie, she was absolutely terrified to find Arthur sitting on her couch. So no matter what we think did actually happen or didn't happen, the ending scene implied that everything we saw, at least mostly up until that moment with Arthur on the Murray Franklin talk show, was him recounting that story to the psychiatrist of whom he murdered at the very end of the film. Now, sure, it seems like certain events did happen, or so we think, since the sequel is continuing on the story from the plot points of that of the first movie, such as Arthur Fleck being tried at the Superior Court of Gotham for his crimes committed in Joker 1. We know this, and this isn't mega spoilers or anything. This was just like set photos that everyone saw on the internet. We saw a lot of protesters sat outside the New York City courthouse, which was an interesting thing at the time because I think Trump had a thing there as well. But the signage on it was labeled to that of the Superior Court of Gotham. Certain signs had Dent on it for Harvey Dent. So we know that Arthur's being escorted from Arkham State Hospital to that of the Superior Court of Gotham. And you'd have to think that's because of what happened on the Murray Franklin talk show, and some of those protester signs displayed, words like, Arthur killed Murray or something like that. So we know that they're at least following certain canonical events from the first movie, but there were certainly aspects of the story that, in my opinion, was 110% left open to interpretation. And I think this one is debated a little bit, but in my mind, I'm like, they definitely set this up for you to be like, oh, but wait, such as Arthur not knowing if he was really Thomas Wayne's son / Bruce Wayne's brother. Now, I know someone out there's going to be like, Boba, no, they shot that down. But trust me, it was teased to the audience. And then, yes, you're right, maybe seemingly shot down in the movie. But right as you thought it was debunked, as Arthur was doing his makeup in the mirror or whatever it was, the movie introduces that note on the back of the photo of Penny Fleck with a somewhat potentially flirtatious comment from Thomas Wayne, and it says literally, "Love your smile, ... signed T.W." Now, that doesn't confirm anything, but what I love about it, once again, going back to the main point here, is that they teased, oh, is Arthur Thomas Wayne's son? They seemingly, evidently shot it down, but then they give you one more clue, and it's like, what is the reality here? The second movie can play with things like this so much more. This makes me so excited for the potential here, as it can play from not only Arthur Fleck's perspective, but also Harley's. For example, will Arthur Fleck be abusive, as per the somewhat abusive relationship between that of Joker and Harley Quinn, as what is portrayed in the somewhat super traditionalist canon. But from Harley's perspective, will it actually maybe not quite seem the case? But then we could, flip to a different perspective, and where it gets really dark and definitely shows the reality of the situation, but perhaps still open to that interpretation. Ultimately there, will it be remembered one way or another depending on whose perspective we see the scenes from? Don't get me wrong, I don't want to go too overboard here, but I did just kind of want to open the can of worms of the potential of the whole Folie à Deux shared madness aspect of the film, because a big part about the Joker character that Todd Phillips was definitely embracing for the first movie is that despite it being this seeming origin, if you will, I remember before the movie even came out and it was in production, people were like, no, we don't need an origin movie for the Joker, what's going on? But the way Todd did it was actually quite interesting because it still incorporated aspects of this unreliable narration, and therefore you can't really fully pin the first movie's events as Arthur Fleck's, aka the Joker's, definitive origin. As, of course, it could have just been Arthur remembering some of the events of the movie that we saw as the plot unfolded, as him remembering it one way at the end, including grains of truth of the events that for sure did happen, such as the Murray Franklin talk show with him dying, but maybe certain other events were vastly over-exaggerated in the recounting of the ending interview scene. But so far, I've been kind of talking about a shared perspective or a shared warped narration of the movie in terms of, is this from Arthur's perspective or was it from Harley's? And where maybe it's also totally possible that the second movie, of course, could just be completely uniquely from that of Harleen Quinzel's perspective and not Arthur Fleck's whatsoever, because that was the first movie and we saw how that unfolded by the end, and you're kind of thinking, okay, so what did happen, what didn't happen, but it's still Arthur's story into that tape recorder in that interview room. But the second movie, we could find a similar situation at the end, and maybe that'd be a bit too samey, but it would just be Harleen Quinzel quite simply having recounted the events of the plot that we had seen thus far. I'd love to know your thoughts on that. Okay, so for number 3 is the musical aspects, which is the most controversial part of Joker 2 Folie Deux. So one thing we do know is that Joker 2 will have musical numbers in it. It will. Like, I think that's kind of obvious at this point. Now, people are still debating whether it's to be categorized clearly or not as a musical movie, or just that of a movie which does for sure have just maybe some musical elements in it, but are we still really calling it a full-blown musical? That is still to be determined. Now, a great example of this, in my opinion, would be to compare it to one of Joaquin Phoenix's previous movies in where he played Johnny Cash alongside Reese Witherspoon's June Carter, titled Walk the Line. Now, it's still very much so a movie that unfolded as a drama, scene to scene, lines exchanged, but the thing is, it still had multiple songs in it. Now, compare that to Hugh Jackman's The Greatest Showman, people would most likely agree that The Greatest Showman is way more of a musical than something like Walk the Line is. Or another example here to compare to Walk the Line would be A Star is Born, with none other than Lady Gaga in that as well, with Bradley Cooper. It still unfolded like a drama, obviously a romance, scenes of dialogue, it didn't burst into song and dance every 2 seconds. I think a lot of people are wondering if it's going to go that way or more In the Heights / The Greatest Showman. So all while I personally am far against this being a musical, of which seems to be the unpopular opinion, I'm actually quite down for it. I will say though that I would prefer Joker Folie Deux to take a leaf out the book of Walk the Line or A Star is Born, and where it still very much so plays like the first movie, so plot driven with scenes built up from that of like what we had in the first movies, thriller / drama, scene to scene, so to speak, if you're with me there, but also while still being very aware that we will jump into song and dance at various points of the film. And I don't think people, just on a little side tangent here, people should be shocked by that, because I've seen a lot of people like act as though Joker and Harley have never sung before, and where there's actually so many examples out there of Harley Quinn singing, whether that's in the comics to that of animated stuff, episodes, movies, you name it, Joker as well. There's a lot of examples, and don't even get me started on the actual first movie. Now, all while nobody necessarily burst out into song or dance, you can evidently see the musical rhythm and just influence that Arthur Fleck has in his bones, and how Todd Phillips incorporated that. And he's actually talked about that in the behind-the-scenes special features for the first movie. And anyway, we've had Zazie Beetz, who is reprising her role as Sophie Dumond, straight up addressing it as a musical, saying that I think people will be surprised. I don't think it's going to be what they expect around it being a musical. So take that as you will. She's straight up calling calling it one. And then we have Lawrence Sher, the cinematographer, saying that it's a pretty risky movie and it's going to be surprising for people. And I think his comments there are referring to the stylistic choice of making it a musical compared to that of what the first film is. And it's risky because obviously the first movie was greatly received, made over $1 billion. So if you introduce a sequel for that, and let's just say people, the same amount of people potentially get just as excited, expecting what they saw in the first movie, but then, you know, you have the surprising change of it. Hey, wait, this is a musical. That's kind of what he's getting at here. So personally, I'm really down for this. I just think that, you know, you can achieve the duality of a drama, thriller, crime film with that of a musical. Again, like Walk the Line or something akin to A Star is Born. That would be my preference rather than that of like full-blown crazy musical every 3 seconds. We barely get a breath before they jump into another song. I'm sure people would be very down for that, but I would like a happy medium. And I think that is the direction they're going. Okay, so for number 4 here of what I want to see, what I really hope they do, and this one I just feel like I'm kind of saying the obvious, but I think they need to go off the rails. And in what way do I mean? I'm talking dark. Embrace it. Just like the first movie, have this potentially be labeled the darkest musical yet. Now, remember those articles leading up to Joker, the ones that would say you're basically an incel if you go see the movie, or if you enjoy it, then, you know, you're the problem, or whatever it was. It was crazy the amount of press, and once the movie released. Now, I think when the marketing for Joker 2 kicks off, there will be a bunch of fear-mongering again from the media about whether it's acceptable or not to make such a movie again. And what is that such a movie? Well, that is one that is very disturbing. I mean, the first movie was pretty disturbing. From when Arthur was just working his job at the beginning, getting his head kicked in down an alley, to the Wayne employees getting murdered, to the bathroom dance, which kind of signified that transformation and the delve and the embrace into madness. Arthur's apartment when he got a visit from a friend that didn't end up so well, to, of course, Murray Franklin, all accompanied by the haunting and chilling score from Hilda Gunnadottir, which was just, oh my god, I can't wait to see what she's cooked up for the second film. So to get back into this main point here, I think we can all assume that the second movie will most certainly play in that disturbing sandbox again. But I really want them to double down, and I think they will. The story, albeit this, you know, will be an adaptation, of course, just like the first movie was, is of Harleen, Quinzel, and the Joker. It's not exactly the happiest of tales or romance, if you will. So the ability for Joker 2 to incorporate this shared madness between that of Harley and Arthur Fleck will be a recipe for success, in my opinion, to those who enjoyed exactly the kind of tone that first movie went for. It's just that now, well, they've come back with a freaking double barrel of Harley and Joker madness to somewhat one-up that. And with their messed up relationship, and also mixed in with what could really be this larger-than-life theatrical musical numbers, to then all of a sudden just depicting something incredibly disturbing, I think Todd Phillips is really well aware of what he has got to work with here, and he is going all in. And the thing is, despite the potential debate out there, I really don't think they should shy away from it. In all grounded reality, if you just took the Joker on paper, it's not a pretty picture. He's not a pretty character. And where we already see Arthur by the end of the movie, it's not a pretty place to be. I mean, my God. Now we're continuing that journey. You can portray that character in something akin to that of course, the Batman the Animated Series, and sure, it's all this criminal mastermind, hoo-ha-ha genius, and people will love to let their hair down and just enjoy a character like that, but it can't get too graphic. But when you adapt it in this lens, well, this is what you get, and it's compelling and crazy. And with the story that, you know, will entail with Harley and Joker, I say be as visceral as you can be, Todd. Don't hold back. Now, lastly here, as a little bit of a bonus, just because we know we're getting Harvey Dent in the movie, it seems likely that he's going to be the one prosecuting Arthur in that Superior Court of Gotham set. I think that with the escape that Arthur obviously is going to have, because then there's the other set photo or video that everyone saw when Joker 2 first started filming, I believe it was, when Arthur was running down the street in his suit that was all dusty from maybe some kind of explosion, I don't know. And you had like those other Jokers following him, which were likely protesters from the crowd that were gathering outside the courthouse. Now, it's a bit messed up to say, but I kind of want the Harvey Dent disfigurement. Now, I am by all means not saying that Harvey Dent Two-Face is going to be a major character of this movie, other than his role to somewhat, convict Arthur in that courtroom in front of the judge and everything as best as he can. But if there is some kind of incident that takes place, because it seems so obvious to me, and I don't know any spoilers here, but intuitively to my guesstimation of the plot, if you're coming, there's no better way of escaping from Arkham, an asylum, a state hospital, than if you're being escorted out into Gotham City, into a courthouse. Sure, there's security and police there and whatnot, but you're now outside the fenced around madhouse. You're in the city. So now you've also got a ton of supporters on your side who can help mask your escape in that crazy panic, if you will. Think of when Joker was running away from the two detectives and he was on the train, and then a lot of those clowns got involved. That kind of vibe. I think something's got to go down there. But with Harvey, I think in whatever happens, there could be an opportunity or a nod to, I don't know if there's a newspaper the next day, it depends on what the timeline of the film is, in where it says that District Attorney Harvey Dent severely disfigured in, Arthur Fleck's trial incident or something. I don't know. I just feel like maybe it's written on the wall that they're going to do a nod like that. I would really like to see that. I think it would be pretty cool. Other than that, there's little things like, as I briefly mentioned earlier, even though I think they're going to stay away from Bruce Wayne, Alfred, and everything like that, of which we saw in the first movie, I wouldn't be surprised if, when really trying to sell it to the jury and the severity of what Arthur Fleck caused with not only killing, murdering, evidence on TV, Murray Franklin, but the repercussions of the clown movement, like how the Waynes died, and maybe they'll be put up to be great people, even though Thomas Wayne was dodgier in this iteration of Gotham and the Waynes. But it still could be hammered in that Bruce has now been orphaned. Maybe they put Bruce and Alfred in the stands of the courtroom watching it unfold. I mean, that is possible. Maybe they're watching the trial happen because they could easily just have a space there, but maybe that wouldn't be appropriate for the young Bruce. But maybe Bruce has screamed at Alfred saying, "You take me there, Alfred." I don't know. There's a billion ideas I can kind of spiral off into there, but I kind of wanted to try and keep it condensed for me, that is, into like 5 things. So with that being said, guys, what are you excited for with Joker 2? Is there anything that you particularly agree with here? Is there anything that you can expand on? Maybe something I didn't remotely think about that you absolutely have to see in the sequel movie? Are you one of those people who is like, I'm still not convinced, I'm not completely shooting down the idea, but I need to be sold on that first promo? If so, fair enough. But I'm gonna love you and leave you now, guys. Would really appreciate a like on this video. Do consider subscribing for anything brand new with DC, like news, reviews, breakdowns. But until next time, again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow Jokers in the next video. Goodbye.